A monarchy survives on one asset more valuable than gold: silence. And the one person who knows that silence best is the woman the tabloids turned into a punchline: Sarah Ferguson. While the world laughed, the palace kept her close enough to monitor, close enough to control, and, crucially, close enough to pay. She wasn't born royal, but she survived the machine. The weddings, the private jets, the scandals that should have buried her. She didn't vanish. She adapted. So here is the question. Why did she remain tethered to Prince Andrew even after the divorce and the disgrace? What does Sarah Ferguson know that hasn't made it into the record? Because when you follow the money, you realize she isn't just an ex-wife. She's a keeper of leverage. Itinerary. In the next 10 minutes, we're breaking down how Sarah got inside and what the palace teaches newcomers first. The separation without separation that kept her linked to Andrew. The money systems that cushion royals after scandal. The silent bargains that may explain her loyalty. The secrets that don't look like gossip, but like infrastructure. Act 1. How she got inside. Sarah Ferguson didn't arrive from nowhere. She was born into Britain's upper social orbit. Close enough to know the rules, not powerful enough to write them. That matters, because royalty doesn't simply reward affection. It rewards compatibility with the system. The system has 3 pillars: protocol, access, and containment. Protocol is what the public sees: curtsies, ribbons, and titles. Access is what the elite understands: doors that open, calls that get returned, jets that appear, invitations that rewrite careers. Containment is what the institution lives by, how it keeps problems from becoming threats. When Sarah married Prince Andrew in 1986, she was sold as the fairy tale outsider. But behind the scenes, she was being evaluated like a new hire inside a private company. Can she be trusted? Can she be managed? Will she speak when pressured? Because the palace has a rule: it never prints. If you live inside the machine, you learn quickly what you're allowed to know and what you're not allowed to repeat. Sarah's early years were a crash course in that reality. Royal residences are not just homes, they are operational spaces. There are rooms where staff can enter and rooms where they cannot. There are schedules that become public and schedules that never do. There are conversations that continue in the hallway and conversations that end the moment a footstep is heard. And then there is money. Not the kind of money that shows up as salary. Royal money is layered. Allowances, estates, trusts, private benefactors, and arrangements that never appear on a pay stub. A modern monarchy cannot afford to look like a corporation, so it cannot move money like a corporation. It moves money like an old family, with intermediaries, buffers, and silence. Sarah was learning that from the inside, in real time. Act 2. Andrew's special zone. Not every royal operates the same way, because not every royal is equally useful. Prince Andrew held a specific position in the family's internal map: military prestige, diplomatic access, and the aura of the Queen's favored son. That combination created what you could call a special zone: less scrutiny, more latitude. For Sarah, that meant proximity to networks most people never see up close. Private dinners with global elites. Trips that are official in public language and strategic in private reality. Here's what matters. Sarah didn't need to understand every deal to understand the pattern. Power moves through people, and people move through private spaces. Andrew's world connected to financiers, royals from other nations, business power brokers, and friends of the family, whose names rarely appear in royal press releases. Sarah saw how status can substitute for due diligence. She saw how invitations can be currency. She saw how access can be exchanged, without a contract, without a signature, without a trace. And if you're wondering why that matters for the secrets she might hold, it's simple. The most dangerous information in elite systems is not scandal. It's the map. Who owes whom? Who protected whom? Who introduced whom? And who was allowed to remain close even when the public demanded distance. And here's the part most people miss. The palace doesn't fear the tabloids. It fears documentation. Because tabloids fade, records don't. So when an outsider like Sarah learns where the records are kept, who signs off, who authorizes, who calls the lawyers, she stops being a personality and becomes a liability. Act 3. The first public shame test. In the early 1990s, Sarah became tabloid fuel. Photos, accusations, mockery, an entire media machine turning her into entertainment. Publicly, the palace let it happen. That's another rule. The institution will sacrifice individuals to preserve the larger image. A royal can be embarrassed if it protects the crown. But privately, Sarah was not fully cut off. Her children's standing remained. Her ability to operate remained. Her line to the family, though tightened, did not disappear. That tells you something. The palace didn't treat her like a disposable outsider. It treated her like a risk to manage. And the reason risks are managed, not erased, is because erasing creates unpredictability. A person who feels abandoned becomes unstable. A person who feels monitored remains rational. So the palace's response looked like punishment on the outside. On the inside, it looked like containment. At this point, Sarah learned a brutal lesson. You can be publicly humiliated and still privately protected if you remain useful. One more detail matters. Sarah learned the difference between public punishment and private consequence. Public punishment is theater, designed for headlines, designed to satisfy anger, designed to move the story along. Private consequence is what changes your life. Loss of housing, loss of security, loss of access to the people who can fix problems quietly. Sarah endured the theater, but she avoided the consequence. That suggests someone, somewhere, kept the door unlatched. And in royal life, doors do not stay unlatched by accident. Act 4. Divorce without detachment. Sarah and Andrew divorced in 1996. On paper, it was separation. In practice, it was rebranding. They continued living in close proximity. They continued co-parenting inside royal property. They continued presenting a form of unity that made no sense in a normal family. This is where the ex-wife label becomes misleading. Sarah wasn't removed from the ecosystem. She was repositioned. Divorce did two things at once. It reduced official responsibility, so the monarchy could say, "She doesn't represent us," and it preserved unofficial proximity, so the monarchy could still influence, observe, and contain. Think of it like this. If Sarah is inside, she can overhear. If Sarah is outside, she can talk. The institution prefers predictable silence to unpredictable freedom. So the divorce created a controlled distance, enough to manage optics, not enough to lose leverage. Act 5. The money that never adds up. Sarah's public financial history reads like collapse. Debts, lawsuits, awkward deals, commercial ventures that looked desperate. But here's the mystery. She never truly bottomed out. She kept a lifestyle floor. She kept security. She kept access. She kept proximity. That doesn't happen by accident. Royal adjacent money operates like insulation. It is designed to prevent embarrassing freefall, because embarrassing freefall creates headlines, and headlines create questions, and questions create investigations. So the system doesn't need Sarah to be wealthy. It needs Sarah to be stable. How can that be done? Through housing arrangements, through friends and intermediaries, through allowances that can shift quietly, through private support that looks like personal generosity but functions like institutional risk management. Because when a figure like Sarah becomes financially desperate, the danger isn't bankruptcy. The danger is temptation. A desperate insider can sell stories. A desperate insider can trade access. A desperate insider can be recruited by people who want leverage against the crown. So stability becomes security policy, which leads to the most uncomfortable possibility. Sarah's support may have been less about kindness and more about preventing her from becoming an uncontrolled variable. And insulation always has a price. If Sarah was truly cut off, why didn't the floor drop out? Why didn't the phone stop ringing? Why didn't the invitations evaporate? Because a controlled life is easier to manage than a desperate one. And desperate people make deals. The Andrew problem becomes global. Then Andrew's controversies erupted into something the monarchy could not quietly absorb: public outrage, international scrutiny, a scandal that threatened to stain the institution itself. In moments like that, you'd expect former partners to run, distance, denounce, disappear. Sarah didn't. She defended Andrew. She framed him as misunderstood. She stood in a position that looked irrational, unless you understand how elite bargains work. Because in elite systems, loyalty is often contractual without paperwork. The contract is protection for silence. If Sarah breaks alignment with Andrew, she risks more than gossip headlines. She risks her tether to the network that keeps her stable. And she risks signaling that she might one day speak in a way that harms the institution. If the palace believes she is unpredictable, the system changes. So her public loyalty can be read as insurance, a visible message to the gatekeepers: I'm still on the inside. I'm still controllable. I'm still safe. Act 7. The secrets are not what you think. When people hear royal secrets, they imagine romance, arguments, and gossip. But the secrets that matter in an institution like this are structural: how reputations are cleaned, how problems are moved, how money is routed, how relationships are maintained with people the public would never approve of. Sarah's real value is not that she could tell a juicy story. Her value is that she has lived long enough to understand patterns. She knows which scandals get smothered and which get sacrificed. She knows who disappears and who gets rehabilitated. She knows what private truly means in a family with state-level influence. And she knows the difference between what the palace says and what the palace does. That's why her interviews often feel strangely careful. She speaks emotionally, but not operationally. She offers sentiment, but not mechanisms, because mechanisms are what create accountability. Which is why the most telling thing Sarah has ever done is what she hasn't done. She hasn't written the tell-all that would make her instantly rich. In this ecosystem, the payday for talking is tempting, but the long-term cost is higher, and the palace always calculates the long game. Act 8. Why she stays. So why does Sarah Ferguson remain in orbit? Why isn't she gone? Fully gone. Years after divorce, decades after scandal. Because her relationship to the monarchy is not purely personal. It is strategic. She has daughters who remain tied to royal legacy. She has a history that can't be rewritten. And she occupies a unique category: insider, but not core. Close enough to know, distant enough to blame. That makes her useful. And usefulness inside elite systems is the most reliable form of protection. And if you think this is just about one couple, remember, Sarah's story is a case study. It shows how an institution survives scandal by turning people into compartments. Kept close, kept quiet, kept useful. Closing. The price of speaking. Sarah Ferguson's greatest secret may not be a story. It may be the understanding that royal life is a trade. Access in exchange for silence. Stability in exchange for loyalty. Protection in exchange for containment. And if that's true, then the question isn't whether she could reveal what she knows. The question is whether she ever will. Because for someone who has spent decades inside a system built to manage risk, speaking out isn't just betrayal. It's financial danger. It's social exile. It's the end of protection. And in a monarchy, protection is everything. So when you see Sarah smiling beside the institution that once let her be publicly destroyed, remember, in elite families, survival is not about love. It's about leverage. And Sarah Ferguson may be holding more of it than anyone realizes today.